What's going on, Sci-Fi fans? My name is Ben and welcome back to the bench for another episode of the Lando Falcon here on Sci-Fi Wednesdays. Today we're going to go ahead and push forward on some of the internal parts there on the Falcon, do a little bit of work, maybe drill out some holes for fiber optics. We're just going to have some fun, do some detail painting, just really get this thing looking pretty cool. We're just going to dive right on in. Now, last episode I went ahead and primed the kind of living quarters right in the center of the ship, and I'm thinking we need to go ahead and do some detail painting on that today. So it shouldn't be too bad to do. I want to go ahead and add in some potential for lights as well. I might want to add in some small SMDs to kind of floodlight certain panels and whatnot, so that should be kind of fun. Now, of course, last episode we went ahead and put together the cockpit and that little side extension, and we went ahead and glued everything together. We put some rubber bands around it to make sure it kind of held in position. So there's a little bit of cleanup we're going to have to go ahead and do, but we do have the lights tucked inside and glued down. So I think this is actually coming along. I gotta say, it actually turned out pretty decent. I put those lights in there, so we have 4 SMDs, 2 pointing back towards the pilot and co-pilot, and then 2 pointing up. I think it looks pretty cool. Wires are nicely tacked into place, and they're not really going to go anywhere. So all we have to do is when we get this kind of hooked together, we'll just wire them up to some basic ribbon cable and string it on down into our base. So I'm hoping that's going to be a perfect way to get this thing all nicely lit up. Also, you might have to do a little bit of work there eventually on just how bright some of these lights are, but we're not going to worry about that just yet. We'll do that a little bit later. Now, there is a couple of areas we do have to go ahead and clean up here on this extension for the cockpit. Just a couple of seams we might want to sand down. I've got my jeweler files, I've got my sandpaper, so that really shouldn't be all that big of a deal. When we go ahead and attach this part to the top of the Falcon, there's a wonderful opening that just drops those cables and wires right into the main center portion of the hull. So that's going to be really, really helpful. And I actually might want to add in some lights or maybe some fiber optics into the bottom of the saucer section itself. I kind of thought that might be somewhat fun to do, so I might get to that a little bit later in today's episode, but for right now, this actually looks pretty nice. There's a really nice path for all the cabling to go where we need it to go. Lots of room in there for connections and LEDs, so that's going to be really, really nice. Now, you know me in references, I cannot build anything, it seems like, without having some pictures or reference material. And this is actually no different because I went online and I found a couple of photographs of the actual set that was used in the movie Solo. So this gives us a really good idea about how the coloring is going to be here on the internal portion of the Falcon. So for example, we have a very glossy black floor. We've got white walls. We have some dark gray panels here and there. We've got some details to pick out. So I think we're going to go ahead and jump into our first time lapse, and we're just going to go ahead and work on the floor and do some detail painting on that chair and paint up some of the consoles, just paint up some details. On with that first time lapse, guys. So let's see what we can do and get this thing moving. All right, everybody, so that went well. We have our floor all nicely painted and we've begun the masking process. I'm just going to go ahead and mask off everything here on the floor and along the walls and all that, and then we're going to come in and I want to go ahead and paint the walls with the Tamiya flat white. Once I get that done, that's going to allow us to maybe paint up the seating areas with that yellow color, and then also some of the sidewall details, and then of course that little bar that sits right there up in the corner. So we have a lot to do, guys. Let's get some detail painting done and see what we can do. Alright everybody, we are back, and as you can see, we have our walls and our consoles all nicely painted with Tamiya flat white. It was a really good idea to go ahead and mask off that floor though, because I didn't want to go ahead and get airbrush overspray over everything. So this way I kept the floor a black color, and we just went ahead and painted the walls, that little bar up in the corner, and of course the round circular seating area just with a regular old flat white by Tamiya. And then we came in and we touched up with a little bit of sky gray, a little bit of yellow just on those seats, and a little bit of NATO black for certain areas. So I think this is really coming along, and I'm digging how it's looking so far. This kit has so much detail, guys. A really good paint job, some dry brushing, some detail painting. You can make this thing look pretty awesome. Now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about lighting. I want to go ahead and install 3 lighting units right here on the side. As you can see, I've already drilled out the holes. I did that during the time lapse, but I need to go ahead and kind of figure out how that's all going to go together. And I think having 3 lights will kind of flood down over each of those panels. That's going to be really, really cool. We're going to have to do some more detail painting in there just to make sure you can notice all the detail. So let's go ahead and jump back into a time lapse, guys. I want to work more on the sidewall details. I want to go ahead and start painting those up with some NATO black. And I also want to go ahead and move over while that's drying to the hull itself and start drilling out certain areas for some fiber optics and maybe some navigation lights or something like that. So I want to go ahead and jump in there. Well, let's see what we can do. Last time lapse of the day, guys. Let's push on, get this thing wrapped up for today. Alright everybody, we are back, and as you can see, we've done quite a bit of work here on the lower portion of the hull. We've got both of the side details there, we've got all the trim details as well. We've added in a couple of things here and there, like that center turret area. I think this is actually a really nice model, super detailed. We also went ahead and installed a couple of openings for some fiber optics. There are two red lights that sit on either end. I'm assuming they're like docking ports or something, those little circular areas right in the middle of the fuselage. I went ahead and I drilled them out, and I think that looks pretty cool. We've got holes drilled out strategically around the lower portion of the saucer to go ahead and eventually feed in some fiber optics. We also have most of the side trim areas installed and glued into place. We shouldn't take more than maybe 5 or 6 fiber optic strands, and then we'll just run it off of one LED. Maybe just kind of hook it off on the side or something, and then just run them out to each of the openings. And then maybe we'll just go ahead and tint the fiber optics right here on the side docking ports in that red color. And I'm hoping that that's going to be enough. We'll see how it goes. I also was able to work on some priming. We have the gun turret areas, both the internal structure and also the gun seat with the aiming and control rod. Those are all painted in some Stalinares gray primer. Looks pretty good. Next time we can come back and detail paint those. And we also went ahead, overcoated the main floor with Future, and that really made all that black pop. So it looks really, really glossy right now. And we went ahead and overcoated all the sidewalls with Future as well. So we can come back a little bit later and maybe drop some panel liners or maybe weather them up just a little bit to make some of that detail even more prominent. And then of course the bottom of the hull is looking fantastic. We've got all the edge detail and of course the fiber optics drilled in there. So we're looking beautiful with that. And then the gun emplacements as well. So if we end up not being able to use the fiber optic for some reason, doesn't matter. They're very tiny holes. I don't think you're really going to notice them. So I think we're good either way. We might as well try, right? But anyway, guys, we're going to go ahead and call it quits for today. I want to say thank you so much for stopping on by and watching episode number 4. This is a great kit and I'm having so much fun building this up. It's just one of those awesome models I've always wanted in my collection, and now I finally have an opportunity to build one. So until our next episode, you guys know the drill. Go out there and get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool, and we'll see you back here on episode number 5 for the Lando Falcon here on Sci-Fi Wednesdays. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.